Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. On this beautiful, very hot and muggy Saturday night here in Switzerland. I was out and about today, made some other videos, and man, it was hot. I was sweating. I'm still sweating. I'm sweating really hard, actually. Anyway, I wanted to come to you guys, and first I want to wish every father out there a happy Father's Day. I know it's not Father's Day everywhere, but I know primarily in the States and places like that it is. And I want to wish you all a happy Father's Day. I had a lot of strong fathers in my life, starting off, first of all, with my own father, Roy Travis Box. He was born in 1947 and sadly passed away 5 years ago. And he was a character. He was a character. He had... he was funny. At the same time, he was not funny. He you know, growing up with him as a dad was not always the easiest thing, but later on, seeing him as a grandfather was a completely different thing. He was a great grandfather to his grandchildren, and he loved being a grandfather. And he did love life. I mean, he wasn't always in a good shape. He spent 29 years in the Army. And when he retired, he got back to work again, worked for the local water board, where he managed their records and their bills and that kind of stuff. And he also worked as a judge, also in Grant Parish, where we're from. And yeah, so he was a busy guy. He stayed busy. He was a carpenter. He was a bit of a farmer. I remember, you know, he and my uncle, my grandfather, another couple of fathers, you know, who were also prevalent in my life. But we built our house together, you know. I was part of it because I was little, but I was still there getting in all the small spaces, helped in painting and helped in hanging wall paneling and all that stuff like that. We did putting tin on the roof because we had a tin roofed house. My dad loved having metal roof because it puts you to sleep when it rained. In Louisiana, it rained a good bit. So, but yeah, I remember he was a car salesman for a while, and I remember he used to. I'm not going to say which car dealership it was, but he would come home. I remember him coming home one time without just his boxer shorts on. He had a poker game on a Friday night. Yeah, he came back home with nothing, but also I've seen him come home with a brand new car and a load of money in the pocket too. So yeah, he was a character. He was funny. And I remember the last time I got to speak to him was just right after he'd gotten home from being in the hospital for an emergency, and he sounded really weak. He lost a lot of blood. And I remember my son and I, we'd called him and just to, you know, hear his voice, say hello to him, see how he was doing, that he had come back home. And I told him, Dad, you need to think about retiring for once, you know. I mean, he was 67. He wasn't that old, you know. And I remember him hanging up the phone, and he was sounding all grumpy. He said, well, you and Judy, which is my stepmom, his wife, you and Judy just plan out the rest of my life for me. And that was it, you know. That's the last thing he said to me. But anyway, but if you knew him, you also knew that even though he was a grumpy old guy sometimes, you know, he had reasons to be grumpy. He wasn't grumpy because he wanted to be. But yeah, he was the first father that I remember. You know, he's the first father of my life. I also remember my grandfathers. And I was lucky to have had three. First was my father's father. His name was Roy Lee Box, and he was a hard-working man, very hard-working, and lots of good stories about him growing up. He wasn't a big talker like the rest of us were in the family. I mean, we all took that from my grandmother, his wife, Lucille Box. We were all big talkers, but he wasn't. He was a very quiet man, and he would roll his Prince Albert cigarettes, and he worked in the field, but he was also a carpenter. And I remember one time he came home with a cast on his arm, on his left arm, and he was working on a silo with some young guy. He said, and a young guy, the guy could have been 30 years old. I don't know. My grandfather was already in his 60s, I would say, you know, and he was working on this silo, and they were tearing it down, and there were some rods in it, and they were pulling them up, and he had to reach his arm and do something, and the rod fell through his arm and broke the bones all the way through his arm to the bottom of the silo, and he actually pulled it out himself. He pulled the entire thing up until he got out. He got himself to the hospital, got the cast, And I think he went back to work. That's the kind of guy he was. But he was funny. I mean, I remember even on Saturdays, we would, like after, he'd been growing the whole season, watermelons in his field. He had 5 acres of land, and we grew watermelons, and we had peach trees and plum trees and lots of tomatoes and lots of cantaloupes and cucumbers and lots of different peas and corn, and he grew all this stuff, and then we would take it down to Colfax, and we would go peddling. And he's the only guy I ever knew would probably had $100 worth of watermelons, came back with $9 because he just gave a lot away, And he made his own coffee, really black. He drank it black, and he had this little small kettle that he would make his coffee in every morning and put it in the thermos, and he was good to go for the rest of the day. He seemed to always only have 2 sets of clothes. One was for church, and when that got to wearing down, that became his everyday work clothes. But he mostly worked in overalls with a t-shirt on, or a collared shirt, and he had a felt hat that he would wear, and a pair of leather work boots. And then when it was time to go to church, he would had a nice pair of pants, the same kind of shirts, and he had a brand new felt hat, didn't have any holes in it from letting air out, that kind of stuff. And he would had a newer pair of work boots, I think. But he was a character. He was such a character, and he always carried, like I said, Prince Albert on him for a tobacco tin. Prince Albert was his folding stuff and the matches, and he also carried some lemon drops on him. And his favorite dessert was pineapple upside down cake, which my grandma used to make for him. But he was a really good guy, very short guy, very compact, super muscular. I saw him one time. He had come out of the bathroom after taking a shower, and he had his boxer shorts on and his t-shirts, his what we call, the T-type shirt that they call, I don't remember what they were, but anyway. And he was getting ready to go to bed, and he was super fit guy. I mean, he was really fit. I mean, another grandfather was my real mother, father. His name was Fred Mahfous, Syrian origin, our family is, and he had several jobs at one time. He was a painter. He worked at a Chris Oak factory. He did a lot of stuff, and he always had these coveralls on he would wear, and they seemed to always have splotches of paint on them. And I never saw him in anything else but coveralls that I can remember. He'd taken a refrigerator and pulled everything out of it and made it into it's one of those older refrigerators that were all metal. He took all that stuff inside of it and then refashioned it and made it into a smoker. He would make 40 hamburgers in one shot. And he was a character. He was a tough character. I remember one time my uncle, who's also passed away now, had done something, and I think he had back-talked my grandmother, and he and I hung out together like thieves, and he pulled his belt off, and he smacked him, and at the same time he got me, and I had this big mark on my leg. He didn't play. My mother got mad at him, and he told her, "You're in my house, and you keep talking to me like that, I'll put you over my leg, and I'll take care of you too." And she yelled at my dad to get involved, and he said, "We're at his house." Yeah, he didn't play, but he was a good guy, and sadly he died of, like my other grandfather, of cancer, emphysema. And also he was a heavy drinker, and he stopped it, but he was my grandpa Box, whom I was speaking about earlier. He didn't go to the war. He was too old for World War II, so he stayed home and was a farmer. And my grandpa and my grandma Box, it was interesting enough, during the Louisiana maneuvers, she and her sisters, they all washed clothes for the soldiers who were training in the area. So they would do laundry. I think 25 cents a bag of laundry, So, but and they did all that by hand back then. But my grandpa Mahfous, Papa Fred, he actually went off to the war. He was an infantryman, a mortarman actually, with the 20th Infantry Regiment and part of the 6th Infantry Division. And he fought in the Philippines. He fought in now I have a good book. I have a book about it actually. And he was wounded during the war, and it took him years before he got his Purple Heart. We had to fight because everybody had died. And he got the Purple Heart knocking out another a Japanese position And same time, their last round, I think it was a mortal position, their last round landed on him and killed most of his team and wounded him. He was in the hospital. Well, we had to go back and find all that stuff. It took a long time. It took many years. Matter of fact, he had passed away by the time we did finally get his Purple Heart. I do have his Bronze Star, and it is right here. This is my grandfather's Bronze Star right here, and it's got his name on the back of it that he had earned during the war. And he'd got this for valor also. So this is his Bronze Star right there. And on the back of it, I don't know if you can see that, but it's written Fred Mahfouz. And that was my grandfather. But anyway, this was a gift from my uncle when they finally got his medals and everything sent to him from the government. This was given to me. And I proudly hold on to my grandfather's Bronze Star. Now, another grandfather I had, who was also a war veteran, was my mom, Judy, my stepmom, her daddy. And his name was Owen Richards. And he was a Navy man, and he was a cook. And I think there were 40 of them that started the war. I think maybe only half of them made it back. And I remember one time there were still 8 of them still alive. Now there's none. They've all passed away. But what's really incredible is that they all would see each other quite often. Those veterans, those guys who went to their initial school together and served in the Pacific together. And even after family members would the fathers would pass away, the grandfathers, the children would even still come to the reunions and stuff. So very interesting. But that's 4 men right there, you know, who and then of course they're my uncles, and I have a lot of uncles who are great fathers. My Uncle Joe, my Uncle Chris, my Uncle Kenny, and then there is my Uncle Neil, who also just passed away recently, and yeah, and then of course my brothers. My brothers Ken, Paul, Kevin, myself, and then my brother Mark, and then my nephew. He's a great father, and that's Mason. And then of course, I'm trying to think of any other ones that have kids that I really know. I mean, I have other uncles, and my Uncle Royland, my Uncle Tommy, my Uncle Danny, and my Uncle. I've been away so long and my brain is so fried now as I get older. But my Aunt Robbie's husband, I'm sorry, I have just like it slipped my brain. But anyway, these have been some great fathers in my life, you know. And then, of course, I have a lot of my friends now whom I served with in the Army, and they are all turned out to be really great fathers, from Nelson Friday to Thomas Postal to Paul Clayton. These are some guys I can just tell you right off the hand, and of course there are so many more of them, you know, that I served with, and I want to thank all of them for that, you know, for that friendship, and I wish all of them a very happy Father's Day, not Merry Christmas, happy Father's Day, and yeah, so. And I have a lot of other friends too who are dads out there who's doing a great job. Even guys who you know, like my buddy Ross Mann, who's a stepfather, and he's doing a great job as a stepfather even. And he's got a daughter and a granddaughter. So then of course there's Zoli and Adam, and they're 2 great guys, great fathers also to their kids. These guys are just, you know, and then another friend of mine who's a stepfather, and that's Andrew. And you know where you're at, Andrew, because you've even helped me in my life. But I mean, these are just a few. I'm sure I'm missing a lot, and I do apologize to all you fathers out there whom I am missing, and I do wish you all a happy Father's Day. And please, if you have a father, please thank him. And if he's not around anymore, be thankful for him. No matter how good or bad, you are a result of that. You are his legacy. And just try to be a positive legacy. That's all I can say. Anyway, again, I want to thank everybody. And there are a lot of, if I can just get back to another great man in my life who was a fantastic father, and that was my ex-wife's father. He was a great father to me. He was a great father to his daughters and his sons. And he was just for 20 years, he was my dad. And he passed away a couple years ago. And for me, it was like losing a father. Anyway. And his sons have sons now also. And they have children. Marcos and Martin. And of course, there's also my sister-in-law husband. He's a great father also. So listen, there's a lot going on there. A lot of people, a lot of great fathers there that I got to meet in my life, got to take inspiration from, and got to try to raise my kids the best I could. But it's not always easy. It's not always easy. You know, it's we find it's actually easier making them than it is raising them. But yeah, I think that it's important that as a father we take that responsibility serious and do the best we can to be the best father we can. We can't always be friends to them, but we can be great. We can be fathers to them, and we can try to coach them and mentor them, and show them leadership. Show them right from wrong, because education starts at home. And I can tell you one thing: I was educated when I was at home. When I got to school, I learned math and all this kind of stuff. But when it came to life skills, I got all that at home. And sure, I've made mistakes, but I've also learned that you know, you stand up to your mistakes. You take measurement, and you move on with life, and you try to do better. But anyway, again, I want to say Happy Father's Day to all of you fathers out there. You know who you are. If you're not a father, well, be thankful to your father. And I hope you all have a happy weekend. And anyway, thank you a lot. I hope you guys have a good weekend and Happy Father's Day again. How many times have I said that in this video? And I hope to hear from you. Give this video a thumbs up. Leave your comments, especially if you want to wish a Happy Father's Day to somebody. And yeah, thanks a lot. Have a good night. Goodbye.